how long can Toyota continue to have scandal after scandal, problem after problem, and get caught lying to buyers for buyers to continue buying those lies and buying those vehicles? Because right now, Toyota does remain number one. And yes, the list of problems are seriously growing. And I know for the big three American companies who had very reliable, amazing vehicles in the 40s, 50s, and 60s had more and more issues across the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And Toyota got unbelievably reliable. They were crap at first back in the 60s, but Toyota became very reliable throughout the very late 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And in the 80s and 90s, they were building vehicles with motors and transmissions that could do 500,000 kilometers. So, 350, even sometimes 400,000 miles. And that's absolutely wild for those decades, because I could remember in the early 90s, American brands, generally you figured, well, I'll probably get about 150,000 miles out of the transmission or out of the motor. So many of the models seemed to always have an issue with either the motor or the transmission, making it hard to keep the vehicle for a very lengthy period of time if you do a lot of mileage yearly. But let's talk about Toyota's problems. While Toyota had some amazing decades for reliability, the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, all the 2000s really, unbelievably impressive. But then in 2009, they had their scandal with the gas pedal sticking down to the floor. At first, they tried to deny everything. Then they blamed it on the pedal, the accelerator pedal, getting caught up on people's added aftermarket floor mats. And then, it was really discovered the problem really was theirs and they were not being very responsible. Well, not a whole lot has changed. That seems to be their modus operandi, because they are still functioning in that way. So we got CNN Business News right here saying, with the title, Toyota remains world number one, but its list of problems is growing. Thank you, Michelle Toe, for covering this. When Ford has the most recalls, all the journalists don't even point out, hey, Ford is taking responsibility for what they built. The complete opposite if you have a 1999 to 2000, including 2008 Porsche 911 IMS bearing is complete crap. To this day, Porsche still won't, do a recall on that or a bulletin. But hey, it's good when the auto market, when the news don't just pick on the American companies because it gets them clicks. It's actually nice when they spread some of the negativity around, especially when it's well-deserved, and it is well-deserved in this case. So they're talking about how the Japanese manufacturer said Tuesday it had sold a record of 11.2 million vehicles worldwide in 2023, including its Daihatsu and Hino lineups. That represented an increase of 7.2% versus the year before, which is kind of wild because, they've been having troubles, a good amount of troubles. First of all, last year they got caught sending vehicles to, and they're kind of getting questioned about this, and they didn't they knew there was a problem, they didn't fix the problem, and they're deliberately sending vehicles for the crash tests to get crash tested, and they were putting different model airbags in them because they knew their standard airbags were hot garbage that might not even deploy in an accident. They could deploy in a dangerous manner, but more importantly, they have the fault of not deploying. So they deliberately sent to get tested for crash testing vehicles with a different model number for those airbags. Now, how did they not get caught earlier? Well, it's because there's a lot of trust. In Japanese culture, it's incredible. People generally behave extremely well. They have this incredible sense of civic virtue, civic duty, doing what's right, not for yourself first, but for society. So of course, we're all trying to seek happiness, seek health and wealth. So we all have our individual goals, but in Japanese society, your individual goals it's unethical if it's causing problems for other people. So they're very ethical. They're very good for communal living. So there's this high level of trust. And it also means that Toyota factories just weren't getting checked. But just recently, the police actually went into a Toyota factory to actually start inspecting things and find out what the heck is going on, because this airbag scandal isn't the only scandal going on here. So let's talk a little bit about that. Toyota announced it would suspend shipments of certain models after finding irregularities in certification tests for diesel engines developed by its affiliate Toyota Industries. Overall, 10 models use the affected engines globally, including the Land Cruiser 300 SUV and Hiace van, the Land Cruiser, the 300 SUV, the Hiace van. According to Toyota, just essentially, if it has a diesel in it and it's a Toyota, there's a chance that they were cheating the pollution tests. So they're not going to get shipped. And this isn't the first time that they've had this problem. So this came just only a month after the Daihatsu scandal, which was all about, cheating safety tests. So this is a pretty big deal. Now Toyota is going to be facing more and more competition. Volkswagen, generally Toyota, Volkswagen, they're always vying to be number one. You're going to have BYD coming up, a Chinese company making vehicles. That's going to start causing problems for everyone. And of course, there's Tesla. Now, BYD is actually, glad that CNN Business is pointing this out. BYD has become the latest example of a company to see its bottom line affected. On Monday, the Chinese electric automaker said in a stock exchange filing that its net income likely rose by up to 86.5% in 2023 compared to the previous year. So yes, slowly, more and more companies are going to start becoming more profitable in regards to electric vehicles, meaning there will be space for electric vehicle prices to come down. And that's why Toyota, who hasn't invested all that much in pure electric vehicles, they have their BYZ4 whatever X, can't ever, too many weird letters finishing BZ XY or YX for whatever. I think it's the worst name in automotive history in my recollection. But I've talked to owners of that vehicle, and they're not very thrilled with how Toyota declared its autonomy and its charge times. They say it takes so much longer to charge than what they had expected, and the autonomy isn't nearly as good as they had expected. So we're going to see how this affects Toyota's bottom line. Will Toyota continue to be number one? Will Toyota buyers continue to be loyal despite all these scandals? Toyota quality scandal. Wine says 10 models found to have rigged data. That's not good. You've got the president here bowing as an apology, or part of an apology. You had Hino Motors back in March 2022 submitting fraudulent emissions and fuel economy data to transport authorities. So these scandals aren't new. You go all the way back to 2009 with the accelerator pedal scandal, and they've been hiding issues, knowingly hiding issues, not fixing them. It's one thing to find out about an issue, not report it to everyone, but then immediately fix it because you're like, oh man, how did this happen? Okay, let's keep quiet, but let's fix it immediately. That's one thing. That's one level of bad. But this is many levels of badness and unethical behavior lower. At least now they've given an apology. Wow, I feel so much better. Everything's resolved. No, this historic behavior of having issues, hiding them, not fixing them, and then, cheating, fraud, it's a major issue. So Toyota Industries doctored the volume of fuel injection in engine output tests in a bid to make the engine's torque or rotational force appear better than it actually was. So that was this news article is saying that's according to a third party panel. And the panel blamed the company's corporate culture, saying it lacked the will to actively increase compliance amid an environment where it felt secure in its position as a Toyota supplier. So big issues, my friends. And Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry said the problem shakes the foundation of the automobile certification system because Toyota and Japanese automakers were mostly sort of, you could say, self-certifying, and they just trusted that what they were saying was the case. But looks like in Japan, they're going to have to do a lot more checks and not trust the automakers. This is going to affect every Japanese automaker. I'm sure they're going to do something about it when the Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry is saying that it's shaking the foundation of the automobile certification system and infrastructure. It means things are going to be changing, my friends. So folks, I think we're going to see some changes coming from Toyota. But let's see if the buyers actually change their habits. You'd think this is the type of thing that would, not necessarily completely ruin a company, but definitely drag it down in a major way. And I do want to add, just to add to the historic evidence, let's go back to, I think this is 2021. So Hiroko Tabuchi in January 14th, 2021, the New York Times wrote the article, Toyota to pay a record fine for a decade of Clean Air Act violations. Toyota's $180 million settlement with the federal government follows a series of emissions-related scandals in the auto industry. Some have a bone to pick with Toyota because they seem to be very slow and not really all that willing to produce electric vehicles. I just want to remind everyone they're fantastic at producing very good hybrids. And hybrids, I think plug-in hybrids are the best option for not having all the inconveniences that can come with trying to long distance drive an electric vehicle. They've got the best of both worlds. Fantastic fuel economy, great for our wallet, plug-ins, not EVs. EVs are still pricey, even though prices are coming down. But if you're a current owner, that's also horrible news because you maybe lost half the value of your electric vehicle after only a couple years. But we'll talk more about that in the episode. But I just wanted to go back and say this is Toyota being, please, in the comment section, what is the good word or expression to describe, snaky, shifty? Come on, someone please in the comment section, or everyone try to throw in shafty. Throw a comment in for what kind of word or phrase, catchphrase even, can describe this kind of behavior. So, back from 2005 to 2015, they systematically failed to report defects that interfered with how its cars controlled tailpipe emissions, violating standards designed to protect public health and environment from harmful air pollutants, according to a complaint filed in Manhattan. I have no issues with CO2 being produced. I do have major issues with pollutants that affect our health, microplastics, pollutants, and heavy metals, mercury, any type of pollutant that directly affects our hormones, our health, our life expectancy. Major issue. You'll never hear me squawking about how awful it is to have vehicles that create CO2. I do not believe that we need to end the burn or stop the burn. And, we can not, let's just avoid having me go into a rant tonight. I don't have any, this is non-alcoholic, so I'm not in a rant position here. Douglas Blair, thank you so much for joining the show. Good to see you, my friend. Now that wraps it up. So Toyota, let's actually see if their owners they have a very loyal customer base, just like Subaru, very loyal customer base. You can have a Subaru WRX STI engine blow up on you and still go and buy another Subaru, as so many people do. But at a certain point, you have to ask, when do people say enough is enough and refuse to stay loyal to the Toyota brand when they're pulling this kind of stuff? It's not okay in my books, and I think that they need to see it in their sales figures. But let's see if anyone's willing to stand by it and say enough is enough, no more. We'll talk about Ford